Hi guys, I haven't made a video in a long time, but today I am here to film Esther Rose's birth story. She's over there crawling on the floor, and she actually has a little cold today. And she's 9 months old today, so it's been a while since I have been able to do a video. If you guys don't know, I have 3 kids now. I have Ruben, who's 8, Becky, who is 6, and Esther Rose, who is 9 months. And I wanted to talk about her birth before I forget everything, because it's almost going to be a year soon in May. So I got pregnant with Esther Rose, and we weren't expecting to have any more children. I was really happy with my 1 boy and girl, and as you know, I've had a lot of miscarriages. So I went into this pregnancy very afraid. Here she comes. There will be lots of interruptions. You coming to say hi? So I went into this pregnancy with a lot of fear, and I wasn't trusting God. I'd also had the best health I've ever had for 6 months prior to getting pregnant. I had Lyme disease before, and I also have a lot of gut issues and things. So I suddenly became very sick, and I'm pregnant, and I worried that I was going to have a miscarriage. And I worried throughout the entire pregnancy, and I also have gestational diabetes, so I have to be on a special diet in order to control my blood sugar, which is amazing that I can do that and not have to take insulin or other medication. But also it's very hard, and I was very strict with my diet. So Esther was 7 pounds. I think she was 7 pounds 6 ounces, which is my smallest baby. My son was 10 pounds 6 ounces, and my daughter was 8 pounds 4 ounces, and Esther was 7. So I started the keto diet with Esther when she was 7 weeks old. So that was the soonest I started keto. Would you like to nurse? You want to nurse? So to say all that, I was extremely excited. She's gonna do this a lot. I was extremely excited to get to 34 weeks, and I was exhausted and ready to have this baby, but I was only 34 weeks, so I was like, well, we have a little bit to go. But I actually went into labor with Esther at 38 weeks. I believe I went into labor at the very last day of 37 weeks, and I had her at 38 weeks pregnant, which was great because nobody wants to be 40 weeks pregnant. I was 40 weeks pregnant with my first. He was born the day after his due date, and let me tell you, that was not a lot. That was a lot. It was a lot of pregnancy. I had this idea in my head that Esther was going to be born at the next full moon. So there was a week before the full moon, and I was just convinced that was when I was going into labor. It was Sunday night, and so I was telling my husband, I skipped church that morning just because I was so pregnant and tired, and I remember laying on our couch, just laying there like, I even took a selfie. I'll put it up here if I can find it. That I was just exhausted, and I was going to rest that day. And I made this whole list of things I wanted to do the week before she was born, because I was convinced she was going to be born in the full moon. Of how I wanted to clean my house and organizing the clothes and just the little last minute things and some freezer meals I wanted to make. Yes, you're very screechy. Anyway. So I stayed up for like an extra hour on the computer, just doing a few different things. I don't really remember what, Facebook, watching YouTube videos, and my husband was playing video games on his phone in bed when I just felt a contraction. So I felt a contraction, and I had been having on and off Braxton Hicks contractions, you know, for the past like 4 months. So I was like, is this a contraction or is it not a contraction? And one thing about me is I don't have pre-labor. I go directly into labor. I don't really know a way to explain this, but like I don't have false contractions or pre-labor, or like I go directly into active labor. That's the word that I'm looking for right there. So anyway, we had planned for my friend Melissa and her husband to watch our kids. They have 4 kids of their own, and my kids love them. They we homeschool together and stuff. But she does the same homeschooling program I do. And they're good friends of ours that go to our church. So my husband called them, and her husband came and picked up my kids, and then we went directly to the hospital. And contractions hurt a lot. I was breathing through them. I knew I was having a baby. I also knew that I wanted an epidural, even though I spent the whole time talking to my doula about not getting an epidural and having a natural birth. Another thing that I experienced during my pregnancy was fear of pain, but I knew I wanted an epidural, but I also felt really guilty about it. I don't know why. I don't feel guilty anymore. So when I got there, my doula was there and my mom wasn't there yet, and I told my husband, I want my mom. Get my mom here. And he had texted my mom, but she hadn't realized that I was having a baby now. She thought she had some more time. So he texted her and he was like, she's having a baby, where are you? So my mom came, and my what do you see it? My doula is helping me through the contractions. She's putting pressure on my back. I'm in and out of the shower. It's great, but I want an epidural. So I finally say I want an epidural, and of course they give you one if you want one. And if I'd had a home birth, which is a whole nother story, I really wanted a home birth, my husband wasn't comfortable, and that's okay. I wouldn't have been able to get an epidural, which would have been a totally different kind of birth. And I can go into that more indifferently. But I did want an epidural, and so I have low blood pressure. So they had to give me an IV, but I was shaking so much, they couldn't get the IV in. They blew a vein. So then they had to put the IV in the other arm. They finally got the IV in, and they said because of my blood pressure, they had to give me a full bag. I'm not a nurse. I don't know anything about doctors or anything, so I don't know why, but they said they had to do it, and I was like, no, I want an epidural now. Because when I'm in labor, I'm just I'm a big baby. Yes. And so they get the IV in, the lady comes and gives me the epidural, and then I am just so happy. I'm crying and apologizing for getting the epidural, and my doula's telling me, it's okay, you really needed one, because I hadn't spent the whole last 6 months with them telling them I didn't want an epidural and that I could do this, and then to request an epidural right when I get there. I felt a bit silly, but I had the epidural for an hour and a half, and I just kind of rested, and then I just knew I was ready to push. I don't know why, I knew. And the baby was there, and I pushed for about 15 minutes, and Esther Rose was born. And she was beautiful, and I was immediately crying and in love, and yeah, it was amazing, and I loved her so much, and I was so happy. And so glad not to be pregnant, and there was my beautiful baby. And while I was very grateful for the epidural, she's shaking the camera. No, Esther, no. Did you want to eat it? You see yourself, don't you? So she was there, and the whole process from going into labor until she was born, that first contraction I had in my house that I was like, is this it? The whole process was 4 hours. I think she would have been there quite a bit sooner if I hadn't gotten the epidural. I only had the epidural for an hour and a half. I did not get an epidural with my second birth, and you can watch that birth story here. And she was 3.5 hours of labor, but totally different. Didn't want an epidural. Very different kind of birth. So then I had the IV and the epidural still in, which I really hate needles. So I don't mind them when I'm in pain, but as soon as the baby was out, I was like, get these needles out of me right now. I cannot function with these things in me. So the nurse was like, we usually like to wait, and I was like, I don't care, get them out now. So she was very nice, and she took them out, and I felt like my body could feel safe now that they were out. And they moved us to mother baby, and everything seemed to be going well. I was just really tired. I had forgotten how tiring it is to give birth and have a baby and nursing for the first time and trying to figure out all this stuff. Anyway, she was here, and that was her birth story. 4 hours of labor. She was 7 pounds, 6 ounces, and she was beautiful. She had beautiful dark hair, and she just looked just like my other 2 babies. I like make the same baby. And the postpartum period though with her was roughest. Not for anything for her, but she was born not knowing how to nurse, and I'm not sure exactly why. I've gone over it and over it again in my mind, but she just had a really weak latch, and we learned later she had some low tone on one side of her body. I don't remember which one it was, but she just could not get milk out. So I had to pump exclusively for 3 months, and let me tell you, that was crazy. But right around 3 months, I worked with a lactation consultant, but right around 3 months, she started nursing, and she's been nursing ever since, and I don't have to pump anymore, so that was great. And she's gonna turn 1 soon, in May. She's my little May baby. My mom also has a birthday in May, and my mom wanted to share a birthday with Esther. Esther was due a few days after her birthday. But Esther was born on May 1st, way before Grandma's birthday on May 11th, and way before her due date. I think it was May 13th or 14th. It's hard to remember now. Anyway, even though pregnancy was hard and birth was hard, we do want another baby if I can have one, because I really would like her to have a friend. But just as with everything, we're not going to try extensively. We tried really hard for Ruben and Becky, and then for Esther, I was doing, this is probably irrelevant, but with Esther I was doing tracking my cycles. I did that for about 1.5 years, and this was back when I had Lyme's disease in 2020, and I just was not in a place where I could have another baby because I was just so sick, miserably sick. And then when I had those 6 months where things were good and I had the best health I'd ever had, my husband and I decided to stop tracking and to think maybe we would have another baby and just give it a while, just till the end of the year. But I didn't think it would happen. So she wasn't necessarily a surprise. Like, we did know we could get pregnant because we weren't using any contraceptive or anything, but it didn't occur to me that it would happen just because of how many miscarriages I had had and how many health problems I had had. I didn't realize that this might really actually happen, but I'm so grateful it did, and she's so wonderful. She's got 4 teeth now. She's not interested in her milk. She's not interested in her milk. No, no, no. And the kids are just over the moon happy with her. They're just over the moon happy with her, and they love her so much, and they're such good big helpers. So yeah, this is the rambling story, birth story of my Esther Rose. My Esther Rose Markey. Who's sick right now, and you have that bruise from falling off the table. Say bye. Bye, Esther Rose.